Hello, lovelies. I'm so glad you're here with me today for this September corn moon gathering. And what a gathering this is. Not only are we meeting under the beautiful corn moon, but tonight we have something extraordinary happening. Tonight we have a lunar eclipse. How exciting. But before we dive in to this magical combination, let's just take a moment just to arrive. Feel your feet on the earth. Notice your breath. And give yourself permission to be exactly where you are right now. You know, as I was preparing for our time together, I kept thinking about timing. How perfect it is that we're exploring the Optimism Root today, one of the 12 sacred roots I've discovered over the past years. And on the very night when the moon is both full and eclipsed. Also this morning, I was walking by the fields near my lodge, the same paths I've been walking on for several years, where nature began revealing her wisdom to me. And I noticed how the corn stands ready for harvest, golden, full, even as the days grow colder and shorter. And I thought, yes, this is what it looks like. So let's begin this exploration together, shall we? The corn moon. Now there's a name that speaks directly to the heart of September's energy. You see, September was traditionally when corn or maize reached its full harvest readiness, golden, abundant, the culmination of months of patient growth. But here's what I found so beautiful about corn. It doesn't grow for itself alone. Each stalk produces enough kernels to feed many, and those kernels carry within them the promise of next year's abundance. Corn teaches us about optimism as generosity, trusting that there's always enough, that our gifts are meant to be shared. And I'm going to share some of mine with you today. And tonight, we have this remarkable gift of a lunar eclipse happening alongside the corn full moon. Now, eclipses have gotten quite a dramatic reputation. All this talk of endings and shadow work and intense transformation. But what if we understood this eclipse through the lens of Optimism Root that I discovered? What if this shadow isn't something to fear, but nature's way of showing us that even when light seems temporarily obscured, it's always returning? Think about it. During an eclipse, the moon doesn't disappear. She's still there, still full, still beautiful. The shadow is temporary, a cosmic reminder that darkness and light are partners in the same sacred dance. And this is what optimism teaches us. Not the shallow positivity that denies difficulties, but the deep trust that recognizes every shadow as temporary, every challenge as fertile ground for what wants to grow next. Now let me share why the Optimism Root is so perfectly aligned with this corn moon eclipse energy, and how I discovered this particular root is one of nature's fundamental patterns for emotional freedom. Some years ago, in my own garden in autumn, I was having quite a difficult time. Everything felt uncertain. The world seemed heavy, and honestly, I was struggling to find reasons for hope. But I'd committed to spending time in my garden each morning, just quietly sitting amongst whatever was growing, no matter the weather. And in fact, it was September then too, and I remember feeling frustrated that my summer flowers were beginning to fade. Why must everything beautiful come to an end, I wondered, feeling rather sorry for myself, I have to admit. And then I noticed something extraordinary. Right there, amongst the spent blooms and the falling petals and leaves, new growth was already happening. seed pods forming, bulbs beneath the soil preparing for next spring, the apple tree heavy with fruit, simultaneously growing next year's buds. Amazing. That's when I understood what I now call the optimism root. That nature had been trying to show me this all along. True optimism isn't about denying autumn's arrival or forcing summer to continue. It's about trusting that every ending carries within it the seeds of new beginning. And tonight's eclipse illuminates something profound about the optimism root. Actually strengthens during apparent darkness. Just like corn that sweetens after the first frost, our capacity for genuine hope often deepens through life's eclipse moments. You know, in our culture that demands constant brightness, constant growth, constant positivity, the optimism root teaches us something revolutionary. That trust in life's inherent goodness includes trusting its seasons. I think about the corn farmers who plant in spring, tend through summer's heat, and then, this is the profound bit, they wait, they trust. They don't dig up the seeds to check on progress, and they don't try to force faster growth. They participate with natural timing whilst holding deep faith in harvest. And this is the optimism our souls are crying out for. Not the exhausting kind that requires us to be perpetually cheerful, but the sustainable kind that trusts in the wisdom of cycles. So how do we work this beautiful optimism root energy during tonight's eclipse? I'd love to share with you what I call the Six Kernels practice, inspired by how corn gives us multiple gifts from one stalk. Kernel 1, golden gratitude. Begin by finding a quiet space where you can see the moon, whether that's by a window or outside if possible. As you settle in, place one hand on your heart and take 3 slow breaths. Then ask yourself, what golden abundance has grown in my life since the last full moon? Not just the obvious wins, but the subtle gifts too. Perhaps a conversation that opened your heart, a moment of peace you hadn't expected, a challenge that revealed your own strength. Kernel 2, eclipse awareness. As you watch tonight's eclipse, weather permitting, fingers crossed, the shadow moving across the moon's face, practice this. Instead of seeing the shadow as a loss, see it as nature's way of showing us that even in apparent darkness, the light is still there, still complete, just temporarily veiled. Notice what in your own life might be in its eclipse phase right now. What appears to be ending that might actually be transforming. Kernel 3, harvest acceptance. The corn doesn't resist when it's time for harvest. It has fulfilled its purpose, offered its gifts, and trust what comes next. What in your life is ready to be harvested? What gifts have you grown that are ready to be shared? What old ways of being can you release with the same grace that corn releases its kernels? Kernel 4, seasonal mindfulness. We explored mindfulness last month under the sturgeon moon, and now it supports this month's optimism. Practice being fully present with when the eclipse and as it happens. No need to make it mean anything profound. Just witness this natural wonder with complete presence. This is how we strengthen our optimism, through mindful appreciation of what's actually occurring rather than what we think should be occurring. Kernel 5, flexible flow. Corn teaches us about flexibility, how to bend with autumn winds without breaking, how to adapt to changing conditions whilst maintaining essential integrity. What in your life needs this kind of flexible optimism? Where can you bend toward what's possible without forcing outcomes? Kernel 6, self-love in cycles. This final kernel honors the self-love, your self-love. Practice loving yourself exactly where you are in your season. If you're in eclipse phase, offer yourself the same patience you'd give to corn growing underground. If you're in full harvest, celebrate without guilt. And if you find yourself somewhere in between, trust your perfect timing. You are exactly where you need to be right now. Now, I want to share something I've learned about eclipses over my years of working with the Optimism Root. Our culture has taught us to fear shadows, to immediately try to fix or brighten or overcome any period of apparent darkness. But the eclipse teaches us something the Optimism Root knows deeply. Shadows aren't the opposite of light. They're proof that light exists. You can only have a shadow when there's something beautiful blocking an even more beautiful life source. It doesn't work otherwise. In our lives, what we often call dark periods, times of uncertainty, challenge, transition, or sadness, these aren't failures of optimism. They're eclipse moments. The light of our essential self is still there, still whole, still shining. It's just temporarily veiled while something important transforms. This is why I call it the Optimism Root rather than just optimism, because roots grow in the darkness. They find their strength underground, in the unseen places, drawing nourishment from what appears to be emptiness. Tonight's eclipse is perfect timing for strengthening this root. As you watch the shadow move across the moon, you're watching a visual demonstration of what the Optimism Root knows. That every shadow is temporary and the light always returns. September's eclipse energy is absolutely perfect for strengthening your optimism, not through forced positive thinking, but through trusting the natural cycles that have actually sustained life for millions of years. So how do we carry this corn moon eclipse wisdom into our daily lives? How do we strengthen the optimism, not just tonight, but through the weeks ahead as autumn unfolds? Each morning, this month and beyond, I invite you to practice what I call seasonal optimism. Notice one thing that's changing in nature around you. Instead of mourning what's passing, look for what's being born. Ask yourself, what is this season preparing in me that I can't yet see? Trust that your timing is as perfect as autumn's timing. And whenever you feel eclipsed by life's challenges, when hope feels temporarily hidden, remember tonight's moon. The fullness is still there. The light is still complete. You're simply in a transformation phase, and transformation requires temporary darkness. The Optimism Root isn't about believing everything will be easy. It's about trusting that everything serves your growth, including the shadows. Now, let me share something that feels important. Well, especially I believe it is. What we're exploring together here, this whole approach to the Optimism Root, it's actually quite revolutionary. In a world that demands toxic, positivity, constant brightness, and denial of life's natural seasons, we're seeing something radically different. We're saying, what if true optimism could embrace the shadows? What if hope could deepen through difficulty rather than despite it? What if the most powerful thing you could do is trust the seasons of your soul with the same faith that the corn farmers trust the seasons of the earth? You know, I suspect if you're here listening to this, part of you already knows this. Part of you has been quietly longing for permission to feel hope without pretending everything is always bright, to trust in goodness without denying the shadows. Consider this your permission slip to practice authentic optimism, the kind that grows stronger in darkness, just like the roots. As we close our time together, I want to offer you this corn moon eclipse blessing. May you trust in the golden abundance that's always growing within you, even when you can't see it yet. May you hold optimism like corn holds kernels, generously, knowing there's always enough to share. May you understand that your eclipsed moments aren't failures of faith, but sacred transformation times when your optimism root is growing stronger in the darkness. And may you always remember, you are part of nature's perfect timing, connected to the ancient wisdom that has sustained life through countless seasons. I'd like to thank you for spending this sacred eclipse time with me, for trusting in the wisdom, for believing that gentle optimism is both revolutionary and deeply practical. Until we meet again under October's moon, or before or after, may your optimism root grow deep and strong, and may you carry this eclipse blessing with you, even in your shadowest moments. Your light is never actually gone. Sweet dreams under the corn moon eclipse, beautiful souls. And I look forward to seeing you very, very soon.